Hi, hello. This is going to be Talk with Your Hands, the history of using hands to express emotion and meaning in art history. So we're going to dive right into the Renaissance. So we're going to look at the work of Leonardo da Vinci. This is the Mona Lisa. It's one of the most popular paintings in pretty much the whole world. So you've probably seen it. The reason there are actually two versions of it is because the one on the right hand side of the screen is what it looks like today. The one on the left hand side is what we think it would have looked like back when Leonardo actually painted it. Because this is the Renaissance, the 1400s. It has literally been more than 600 years since this was painted, and the paint changes. It fades, it changes different colors depending on what pigments and minerals were used to make the actual paint itself. So the one on the left is showing you what it might have looked like. The one on the right is showing what it currently looks like hanging in the Louvre. I want to focus just on her hands for a second. This is a portrait. So we know that it's not just like a random picture. This is not a day in the when they used to just snap selfies all the time. If you got your photo painted, or your photo, if you got yourself painted, you sat for a portrait. It meant that you had the time to do that you could sit and do that. It was a wealthy sort of thing. So we can automatically figure out that this girl is a wealthy, prosperous Italian. Now just looking at her hands, I want you to think for a second, like, what does it say about her? What do you think her life is like? You know, she's got pale skin. It's like smooth skin. There's no calluses or wrinkles or sunburn on it. Like, what do you think that means for her life? What is she doing with herself? If you guess that she's probably sitting around inside, not working, not having to struggle, having a very glamorous, albeit kind of boring life, then you're probably right, because she was an upper class Italian young lady. The way she has her hands, with the right one resting on top of the left one, just at that waist level, is not an accident. It was actually, at the time, there's an etiquette guide from 1461 that says that all young women should always stand and sit with their hands in this position in order to show that they are modest and they are chaste and that they are eligible, and would make a good wife. And this is actually painted of a woman by her husband, so obviously he's going to portray his wife, in a positive way. Okay, so we're gonna jump ahead to neoclassical. This is the work by Jacques-Louis David. It's called The Death of Socrates. So classical was a style of the Greeks and Romans. That's what the classics are when it comes to art. Now the Greeks and Romans didn't do a whole lot of painting. They were big on the sculpture, like those marble sculptures that you've seen, perhaps, the Statue of David, or there's so many others, but it's one of the more famous ones. Those were what the actual classics were. Neoclassics were a more modern, now still think 17 to 1800s, more modern version of those classics, and they were done painting. So they were painting humans in the style of these super musculized sculptures. So this is The Death of Socrates. This guy here in the middle is Socrates. For any of you who know your ancient ancient Greek, ancient Athenian philosophers, you obviously know Socrates, because his whole job was to study ethics and to teach people about it. He taught all the Athenian youths all about the different beliefs that he had come after thinking and studying and meditating on them for a really long time. And one of the really big things that he decided was people should not just listen to the government, they should think for themselves. Everyone should always think for themselves. They should question stuff. Which is actually a very progressive, modern kind of an idea. Unless you're the people who are in power, are like, no, don't question things. We like being, nope, just let us do all the decisions we want. Don't think about it. No, that's not necessary. So they were not big fans. The people in charge were not big fans of Socrates back in his day, to the point where they needed him gone. They needed to get rid of him. And they're not evil people, so they came to him and gave him the option, said, yo, we don't want you here, So you can like leave, tell everybody, hey, I was wrong, I'm gonna go away in disgrace, and we'll like let you live your whole life somewhere else. That'll be totally fine. Can you guys hear my cat in the background? Just kidding. We're gonna ignore her for a bit. Anyway, so he could leave. He had the option, exile, just never come back, have a nice life. They're like, but if you're gonna stay here, we're gonna kill you because you just can't be saying that stuff all the time. He chose, as you might have guessed, since this painting is called The Death of Socrates, he chose death. He said, no, I'm not going to tell people I was wrong because I don't think I was wrong. I have conviction. I stand by what I say. I don't care. You can kill me. I'm not concerned with that. Like, that's not my priority. People need to know my ideas. Ideas live on. So if we look at this picture, first of all, he is displaying the classic Greek body of super sculpted, lots of muscle tone. This guy's job was to think. He's probably not working out at the gym all the time. So this body he has here comes from the ancient Roman and Greek sculptures. His position of his hands, however, helps tell the story. So he's got the one finger pointed up in the air and the one just reaching across. Now, it's also important to know in this story, the way that Socrates dies was he had to drink hemlock, which is a poison. So they literally came and gave him a poison. So you can see the one, like this is the moment where they're literally handing him the poison. Now I want you to stop and think. Put yourself in his shoes for a second. If you were about to die for your ideas, are you just going to be like, yeah, I'll kind of agree. He's not even fully reaching for the cup. He's just kind of like hovering near it. Like he's not even looking at it. So he's like overshooting it. Are you going to be that nonchalant about this? Are you going to be that chill and relaxed? Because I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be. So part of this is showing him just being like, I'm unconcerned with death, but that conviction in the other hand, that clenched fist with the one finger up pointing, I know this, I've got this. It's a strong gesture even in his moment of death. So that's how his body language and his hands are helping to communicate that. If we hop along to a more modern, and I don't mean modern meaning like right now, I mean modern like the 1900s modern. It was like a movement, 1950s. This is the work of M.C. Escher. It is called Drawing Hands. So M.C. Escher is an illustrator and a printmaker and a lithographer. And so this is his artwork here. Now, I want you to think for a second. What do artists make their artwork with? What physical part of their body, besides their brain, do they use to make their artwork? So hands, right? That should be the most obvious answer. These hands are literally drawing hands, which are drawing hands, which are drawing hands, because his hand literally draws the hands that are on the paper. Like this is Inception before it was Inception, guys. So he's showing like this is the important part. The act of creation is happening in my hand as I draw it on the paper. So again, this has been reinterpreted by a contemporary, meaning a currently living artist, Shane Willis, MC, meaning MC Escher, mechanical hand fixing mechanical hands. This is not a drawing. This is actually a sculpture that he created of a robotic hand fixing a robotic hand. It's kind of the current homage to MC Escher's work. So that's how hands can be used in art history to express emotion. Just the literal hand all by itself can convey a mood, an emotion, a complete meaning just based on how you hold the hand, where you hold the hand, what the hand is holding, what the hand is doing. All of that conveys this mood or emotion. Our project is going to be to draw a single hand that hopefully has a mood, emotion, or a point of view. I'm going to actually skip through those slides so you don't have to hopefully get sound. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. But I want you to take a look at these following pictures. And I want you to try to figure out what is the emotion that you think is being shared here. So first is this one. Yes, I know it's from a video game. But what's the mood? What's the emotion? These even aren't like fully detailed hands. There's no nails. It's like a simplified computer version, but you still get a sense of emotion based off of it. It's fear or terror or overpowering, right? How about this one? Maybe stress or anxiety, like your hand is like stretched way wide. Normally, like, you do that to like block things. You put your hands up. Like, if you actually put your hands in these positions, it'll help you kind of feel what that is, because you'll remember, well, when I do that, I feel blah blah blah. Hands can be funny. It doesn't have to be like a crazy intense emotion. It can be a funny, silly emotion. Now, this one here tends to have two different meanings. Some people view it as people reaching up towards something. Other people see it as falling back away from something. So it's the art version of the glass being half empty or half full. Again, art can be funny and humorous, but if you look at the position of the hands, the facial expression matches what the hand expression is. So the hand with the fingers raised up, the guy's scared, he's terrified, he has big wide eyes, big open mouth, and his fingers are splayed wide away from each other. That fear, that pulling back, receding, those are all cues that tell you that he's afraid. If you look at the fist, on the other hand, it's the brows coming down and getting scrunched, the mouth getting scrunched around the nose, the fist literally clenching tight together. So with fear, everything goes wide and open. With anger, everything gets closed and tight. So when you are drawing your hands, it can be really intimidating. This is something that, artists take years and years learning how to do their hands. But there's some basic shapes and designs in the hand that you can pay attention to that will help you get your hands more proportional, meaning the relative sizes of things are correct. So you don't end up with a giant thumb and a tiny rest of your hand, or like your fingers aren't 8 feet long and your palm is like a little tiny thing. Generally, I say start with the palm. Start with that basic. And if you look at your hand right in front of you, you'll see it's kind of like a square. Not exact, but it's close. You can see it's kind of longer on one side. But so start with that basic square shape. Then you got to look at how your fingers are. Now, obviously, this is going to change based on what position you put your hand in. But if you have, the fingers like these in the picture with the fingers curled over, you can look at that shape. And again, it's kind of like a rectangle, but it's like curving on one end. It's not precisely a rectangle shape. If you look at the base of your thumb, you're going to have kind of like an oval egg shape kind of thing going. And then there are two joints at the top of your thumb, and you can think about those as little cylinders stacked on top of each other that get narrower towards the top. If you look at the base of that thumb, it really does go at least a halfway across the base of your palm. Everyone tries to make their thumbs really tiny at the bottom. They really are a very large structure in your hand. Okay, so once you've got that basic outline, you can start adding details. So you have 4 fingers, you can divide those evenly into 4 spaces. Then you've got to look at how do those spaces interact. So if you're looking at those gaps in between those fingers, they're not a flat line, they're not curved, they have these little V's that go in between each of those knuckles. Then you got to round out everything. You've got to add, where's the next joint? So they've extended that first joint down. They're called phalanges. Your fingers are phalanges, and they're a phalanx. Each bone is a phalanx in your hand. So you're now doing that first phalanx that you can see across the bridge. Do you have a mouse? Oh, I do. Right here. This right here is the first. It's actually the second phalanx in your finger, but it's the first one that we can see because back here, you can see it on this part, there's a phalanx right here as well, but it's hidden in these 3 fingers. You can see it, it's right there as well. It's foreshortened, so it's compressed, so you can't see it because the fingers are curling towards you. Then you're going to do the distal phalanxes, which are those very short bits where your fingernails are at. And now you got to finish making the outline. Now you add the fingernails. There's a really good trick of your... actually, hang on, I'll show you on another slide. So again, it's having you add any of these extra curves and wrinkles and detail lines in that you didn't do before. And then you can erase that underdrawing where you made that square. As long as you draw it lightly, you can get rid of those lines later because it's just a structure to help you get a proportional drawing. So this is where I said I'd show you the proportions. If you look, put your palm out in front of you. If you measure the top of your middle finger to the base of that knuckle joint, it's going to be approximately the same as the base of your knuckle to the wrist. Now you have to be looking at the top side of your hand. If you look at the palm side, it's going to be a little bit shorter because the webbing in your fingers actually comes higher on the inside of your hand than it does on the outside of your hand. So if you flip it back and forth, you can see how that raises up there. Another fun trick is if you're looking at each of the fingers, approximately half of the finger is going to be the lowest bone. And then if you divide that top half into, again, that'll be the next distance of the phalanx. And then that last phalanx, if you divide that in half, that'll tell you how tall the fingernail is. So what I'm saying is, from here to here is half of this whole width. And then from here to here is half of this width. And then the fingernail is going to be a little box right down here, which is about half of this width right here. So you just want to keep having it while you're doing that. Another fun little trick is that your fingers are not straight. They do not line up in a straight line. Neither do the joints in your fingers, neither does the top of your palm. None of that is a straight line. It is all going to be a curve, and they're going to be paralleling curves as they go down your hands from the tips of your fingertips down to the base of your fingers. When you're looking at your actual fingers, you want to think about how they curl. They're like little cylinders stacked on top of each other. It can be helpful when you're bending them to realize they need to bend at a joint. They cannot bend at the middle of a bone. That's how you get broken looking fingers. The bigger joint at the bottom, the second joint here, is always the first to bend. Now, some of you are double jointed and you'll be like, look what I can do. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. You can draw it if you can do it. But just know that it's going to look a little weird and creepy because not everyone can do that and not everyone has experience doing that. So it might look wrong even though it is right. Also, when you curl your fingers over, you can see they make this lovely little egg shape down here. As it comes around, that can help you figure out how do you make the negative space in the middle of your palm if you're going to do a view where your fingers are curled over. This one here just shows you don't make your hand go too far back. It will, again, make it look broken. So this is the last bit, and this is what you're going to practice, is this simplified structure. The idea that drawing a whole thing can be super scary, but if you just go through and break it down to its basic shapes, it can be a whole lot easier, and it doesn't have to be quite as stressful and worrisome. All right, so I'm going to try a thing I've never tried before, and I'm going to try to draw it on here as I explain it. So this picture already has the basic shapes, but obviously you'd start with the head. It's going to be like a circle. So if I do a circle, ooh, this is hard without a mouse, friends. Do not judge me. All right, and then we have triangle ears, and it's pretty important. The proportions are what's important about this. The whole point of an under drawing, this simplified structure drawing, is to get the proportions right. So when I'm looking, this here is about half the width of my circle. So I'm going to go to here, and it's almost an equilateral triangle, so all the sides are equal. You thought you were getting away from math class, but no, we brought it back. This one over here is slightly smaller because it's a little bit farther away. But whoop, not that much smaller. Okay. We can see the box here for the body is approximately the same size as the face. The back here becomes whoop, a triangle. You've got another one over here, which is approximately the same size. That would be the kitty butt. This one here is a rectangle that ends just about the same as the kitty butt and comes a little bit more than halfway up, not quite as high as I actually made in this picture. And then you've got another one that comes off over here on an angle, and the pad of a foot, and the pad of a foot. We have a back leg over here. And he's got a little nose and an eyeball and an eyeball. Ta-da! I have made a cat. So from here, you would then go and let me see if I can change color. I can! How exciting. now you're going to go back through and figure out, okay, like this does not have like a boxy corner here. The face comes in and then curves out here. And then this is a seamless transition here. And again, this is a curve coming out. And it would go like this. And there's actually a little paw right here. Again, do not judge me for this. This is way harder than it looks. There's another paw coming out here. This guy comes across. Lovely little palm. I don't know why I said palm. It's a paw, but you know, stuff happens. It's fine. This guy comes up here. There's actually a tail in this guy. The butt is not sharp there. It's actually like a little round curve. Not a little hunchback. And ta-da! I'm very proud of myself for how smooth that transition was. Okay. Yeah. Alright, so I'm not going to do his face because this is like a lot. But you can see how... I lied, I'm going to do his face. You can see how, like, by adding in those details, you get a more precise drawing. And I managed to keep it, despite my wonky trackpad drawing of this, relatively in proportion of what, like, I made it a little bit bigger, but it stayed relatively the correct size. His body got a little too big on me, but it's not the end of the world. So this is what you're going to do. I want you to practice creating your hand, different poses. Start with simplified structure. You can always erase the simplified structure when you're all done, but it'll help get your drawings a little bit more accurately. I am an email away if you still need help with this.